Okay, so according to schedule, now we have a Dhamma talk. This talk is on inner peace, understanding the calmness that we want to develop. And I will focus later on one of the suttas that was given to you in your readings. But before that, I will give you a basic background. So what we have been doing since morning is kind of training our mind, and then and develop this inner peace that we all are capable of achieving. But it requires a little bit of effort and training, and sometimes time also. So Buddha has talked about different levels of happiness, and most common ordinary levels of happiness, and also little more advanced and deeper levels of happiness. And many people are familiar with ordinary levels of happiness. For the Buddha, yes, there are ordinary levels of happiness, but as human beings, the Buddha's advice for us is to not to satisfy ourselves with ordinary levels of happiness. And as human beings, as people who have a human mind, go beyond that and experience more deeper levels of happiness. And ordinary levels of happiness we know are the happiness we develop by, like for example, there's a happiness called Atti Sukha. Sukha is the term for happiness, right? So Atti Sukha, which means the happiness of possession. When you earn something through right means, with your own labor, with your own effort, when you earn some kind of wealth and property, and that sense of achievement, not in unrighteous way, but in righteous means. When you earn something through righteous means, and when you develop some kind of security for yourself and your family, and Buddha call it's Atti Sukha, the happiness of achievement, happiness of possession. But it's definitely a happiness, but it's limited. And it says one happiness we can gain, but we should not stop there. And there are other kinds of happiness. Buddha says that even the happiness of sensual enjoyment. And Buddha did not deny that there is no any happiness or joy or satisfaction when we entertain our senses. Of course, Buddha as a prince, before he became the Buddha, he was a prince. He was a prince, and later he has described the kind of life he had. And he said that he never wore clothes if they are not from Varanasi. Yeah, Kasi, like most refined kind of clothes. So he was only given that clothes, otherwise he will not wear. And he was such a pampered kind of prince. And he had 3 palaces for 3 different seasons. So he enjoyed this sensual pleasure. So he knew that there is some kind of satisfaction and happiness, but they are not enduring. Yeah, they cannot completely satisfy human mind. That is the key here. Like our minds, although we try our best, we cannot be fully satisfied by simply gratifying our senses. You can eat 100,000s of things so many years, but your mind will not be satisfied. You can have all kind of visual, beautiful things, paintings, pictures, movies, all kind of things, non-stop. You will have some pleasure, some joy, some joy at that time, but your mind will not be fully satisfied with that. And we can go through all the senses. So, but the Buddha did not deny that there is a kind of enjoyment in those sensory encounters. But the Buddha pointed out that they are limited. Not only limited, they actually create bondages. They create troubles for us. And people engage in so many immoral activities in order to satisfy, in order to entertain, in order to gratify their sensual desires. So it's kind of push us to do immoral things and generate so many bad karma, and then when they come to reap and we are suffering, and then they are also limited, doesn't really give the real satisfaction, and also then moreover they create bondages, we restrict our freedom, and eventually we get more suffering than happiness. That is why Buddha really wanted us to go beyond that and have deeper levels of happiness. And then Buddha talked about the happiness that we can get through other ways. And of course, Buddha also talks about happiness of generosity. You can have a deeper level of happiness when we share, when we give. When you give and when you see other people are benefiting from that, and that more deeper level of happiness than happiness of eating, for example, right? So happiness of generosity, happiness of dedicating your time and your energy, your skills for the benefit of others. And then Buddha talked about more deeper level of happiness that we can experience in meditation, that we may get through inner peace. Those are the happiness. Those are the forms of happiness. That is not necessarily excitement, because usually we think that happiness is some form of excitement, some form of elation. That's how we understood happiness. But we know that those doesn't stay long. They can push us all the way up, and for a moment, and then they bring us back, and then it's harder when we come back, right? But true happiness, more enduring happiness, is not elation. It's not excitement, but more like a peace, serenity, not fluctuating, stability, steadiness. Those are the more enduring, deeper level of happiness. And our human mind is satisfied only when we have such kind of steady calmness. So what we try to experience in meditation is this inner peace that will eventually feel like, yes, that is it. Before that, we try many ways. We have some kind of joy, happiness for a moment, elation, excitement, and we are back to normal unsatisfaction, normal frustration, and doesn't really satisfy our mind. But in meditative practices, you can experience states of mind that are not fluctuating, but more like deep peace, and then you really feel satisfaction, deeper satisfaction. And those happiness, those forms of happiness are more enduring. They can stay long. And also we have some kind of control on those forms of happiness. Any kind of excitement and elation, sensual pleasure, those happiness, we have not fully control of them. Others can decide whether we are happy or not. Right? Others can decide. if they decide to make us unhappy, they can. So we are fully at the mercy of others, right? But these forms of happiness is kind of a skill that we develop within us. When you really develop the skill and ability to do that, to go to that kind of, achieve that kind of peace and experience it whenever you want, you just need a cushion, maybe a chair. Huh? And then gradually sit and then guide your mind and then experience that deeper peace. And moreover, when you have such experience of deeper peace, although you come out of meditation, you are with other people and doing other things, there's an enduring underlying kind of peace always there. That your mind will not be that agitated, that swayed to different directions. So you develop kind of stability. And that itself is also a refuge and happiness also. So the 5 hindrances we talked about are the heavy emotions and complicated mental states that actually function like a burden, not only hinder, but actually as a burden to our mind. And not only to burden to our mind, and even they can be a burden to our bodies. Because when we experience those strong emotion and complicated mental states, they actually changes the whole physiology. Right? You have enough experience, what happened to your body when you really get angry. Right? Is the body the same like now? No, there are so many changes happening in the body because when the moment you get angry and there are different hormones released to the system, right? Cortisol, that's the poison. And then as soon as the cortisol, dose is given to the blood, then there are so many changes happening in your lungs, in your heartbeat, in your muscles. Such a big change. So those emotions are not only mental states, they are actually influencing our body. They are also physical states. Every emotion has a corresponding physical state. When you have a strong sensual desire or lust, the physiology changes. When you have anger, ill will, physiology changes. When you have jealousy, body changes. So all these 5 hindrances are not only hindrance to the mind, but they are burden, or let's say, unhealthy to our body too. Every time they changes the body, right? And imagine that how much changes an angry thought bring to our body. It really changes the breathing, changes the pulse, changes the heart rhythm of the heartbeat, and changes tighten the muscles, and so many changes. And that's the observable changes, but there are so many other changes happening at this very cellular level. Every cell is changed. Imagine that how many times you get angry in a day. Right? And how many times this body changes, how many times these cells are changing, right? And so all these 5 other hindrances are also a bodily, is also like a kind of burden to body. So by trying our best, even in this kind of prepared environment, this is not a natural environment. This is what you call. This is not a natural environment. You can't live like this in your life. This is more protected environment. So when we try to change our mind, keep our mind free from all 5 hindrances, at least for an hour, or 2 hours, 3 hours, within this protected environment, and our body is relaxed, right? Our mind is relaxed, and we develop. Not only we develop, of course, clarity and more relaxation, but at the same time it's also helping the body. So by training our mind to be away from five hindrances and replacing our mind with wholesome, tendencies. First, we are enhancing our physical well-being. It is keeping your mind free from five hindrances is the most kind thing you can do to your body. And you are enhancing your physical health, your well-being, your longevity, so many things. So that's one benefit. Second one, when you train our mind to be away from five hindrances, and then we also improve our relationships. We have more awareness, more conscious awareness to interact with others. Instead of interacting out of impulse, out of habitual patterns, because now you train your mind to be away from the five hindrances. Whenever they visit you, you become aware of them. So instead of like following habitual patterns, you develop more kind of awareness. You can buy time to say things. Normally, we can't buy time, right? There's no time, there's no space. You hear it, you react it. What you say, you don't know. Just come out from your mouth. It's so interesting, right? It's already inbuilt. All your words, all your sentences. I'm really surprised, when we have an argument in how people remember to, say grammatically correct sentences. Because the speech coming out from your mouth is so fast. No way to think, no time to think, but you speak grammatically correct sentences, right? So already they are already been prepared and built. So there's no space. You see, you say. You hear, you say. Right? Like there's no space, and it's automatically telling and reacting. But as a result of these kind of practices, you become first aware of this agitation coming, this interpretation coming, this urge coming, this tightness of your heart, this fasting of your heartbeat. You become aware of it, and then you can take a moment, like maybe I'm talking about like 2 seconds, but that 2 seconds changes so many things. And then you can say things consciously. And you choose what to say. And that increases our relationships. So it's first good for our body, and then also good for our relationships, and good for the people who are with us. Right? And good for our relationships. We enhance our relationships, we influence others. Our reaction also influences others. And we can either instigate their anger or we can instigate their loving kindness. So we also influence others. And then the last benefit is actually these hindrances definitely cloud our mind and does not allow us to see through clearly. And there's another interesting discourse by the Buddha, where Buddha described five hindrances as different additions, different contaminations of water. Like when we have a clear water, you can see through, right? And having sensual desires in your mind is like adding some dye to this water. So can you see through if you add any dye? It's beautiful, but you can't see through. Your clarity is gone. You don't really see things as they are. And then having anger is like, can you guess with water? Boiling water. Having anger is like when the water is boiling, can you see through? There are so many bubbles, you can't see through. And when mind is having drowsiness or lethargy, it's like what is contaminated by algae. algae, water plants, when water is kept, for a long time in the same place. So then you can see through that water either. And then when mind is full of restlessness and worries, it's just like the water is being having so many ripples with winds, so many ripples. So you can't see through either. When your mind is affected by skeptical doubt or uncertainty, and it's like your water is kept in a dark place. You can't see through either. So Buddha really explained that how it hinder the insight, our ability, sharpness of the mind to see things clearly. But today for this retreat, we want to understand how trying to keep these hindrances at bay can give us such a release and freedom, and we can experience inner peace and deeper levels of happiness. So for that, I have chosen excerpts from a discourse, and you can take your papers, and that is the page 5. Brother, not this one, different one. Yeah. This is the second discourse in the collection called Long Discourses of the Buddha, and this is a part from the sutta. Here, the Buddha first described how how a monk like us, a practitioner will go to a proper place and choose an object to meditate, and then try to keep his mind away from 5 hindrances. Let me read that part. Okay, let's read together. Being endowed with noble mindfulness and clear comprehension, and endowed with noble contentedness, the monk resorts to a lonely place, to a forest, the foot of a tree, a mountain, a cleft, a rock cave, a cemetery, a jungle, an open space, a heap of straw. So let's stop there. These are the places that monks meditated those days. A foot of a tree, a mountain, cleft, rock cave, cemetery, jungle. Don't you think that you are so lucky? Yeah, cave, and even the heap of straw. Yes? So different, yeah. But they had to also, maybe with nature, they may have less distractions maybe. But at the same time, they have to, deal with natural environment and deal with, all kind of natural difficulties like raining. Animals, bugs, mosquitoes, flies. Simple flies. Think about flying, having flies around you. You already have a problem, in the air-conditioned room to keep your mind calm and focused if you have flies around you. Yeah, definitely snakes. But so we have a very conducive environment. Okay, let's keep on reading. After the meal, having returned from his alms round, he sits down, cross-legged, keeping his body erect and his mindfulness alert. So this describes the posture we have to maintain. So we learned about it in the morning, keeping the upper body upright. And then, this is the part. Having given up the covetousness, and that's another translation for sensual desire. Having given up the covetousness or sensual desire with regard to the world, he dwells with the heart free of covetousness. He cleanses his mind from covetousness. Having given up the blemish of ill will, he dwells without ill will, friendly and compassionate towards all living beings. That is how we try to live this morning. And he cleanses his mind from the blemish of ill will. Having given up sloth and torpor, that means drowsiness and sleepiness, he dwells free from sloth and torpor in the perception of light, mindful and clearly comprehending. He cleanses his mind from sloth and torpor. Having given up restlessness and remorse, he dwells without restlessness. His mind being calm within, he cleanses it from restlessness and remorse. Having given up its skeptical doubt, he dwells as one who has passed beyond doubt. Being free from uncertainty about salutary things, he cleanses his mind from a skeptical doubt. Okay. So he described very briefly, how one can, gradually keep the mind free from, away from five hindrances. And then what I really want you to pay attention are the examples, similes given by the Buddha to explain what kind of release we will experience as a result of keeping our mind away from five hindrances. What kind of release? The first example. Just as when a man taking a loan engages in a trade and his trade succeeds, he now not only disposes of his old debt, but he has also beyond that a surplus for maintaining a wife or family. And at that he rejoices and is glad at heart. So that is the first simile. Like being free from sensual desires is like being free from a loan, a debt. So having sensual desires, yearning for so sensual gratification is like having debts, like that, like some kind of lack and wanting. So imagine that you had a really big debt, big loan, you work hard and you somehow finally you paid it off. Now what you feel? You feel relaxed, right? Release. So that's the kind of release that we can experience as a result of keeping our mind away from sensual desire. Let's see the second simile. Just as when a man is sick and in pain, suffering from a grave disease, his food does not agree with him. He has no strength left in his body. But sometime later, he recovers from that sickness. He can again digest his food, and he remains his strength. And at that, he rejoices, is glad at heart. So this is the second simile. So this can be similar to mind that is free from ill will or hatred. Like anger and ill will is like implying here the anger and ill will is just like a disease. When we have a disease, we don't have strength in our body, and many food will not be delicious to us, right? And when you're really angry, can you have a snack? Will you enjoy a snack? Right? But so we will not even we may have so many beautiful things in front of us, but we will not enjoy them, right? When we're angry, even beautiful things you don't see, you don't care, we can't enjoy. Just like you are sick. When you are sick, the most delicious thing does not taste nice. Right? So in the same way, that's what's going to happen to our mind when our mind is influenced or affected by ill will and anger. But when we know the techniques and when we keep our mind away from that, what we'll feel that sometime later he recovers from that sickness and he can again digest his food, he regains his strength, and at that he rejoices and he is glad at heart. So imagine that you had the flu, you had a cold, you had some kind of stomach ache or sickness for like 3 days, 4 days, 5 days. You're really suffering, cannot move, and maybe after 7, 8 days you recover. Now you can walk as you walk early, you can eat things. What do you feel? That the early is like a burden, it's like you have kind of and then now you can that release, the sense of release. That's what we will experience right here. Let's read the other part. Just as when a man has been thrown into prison, but sometime later he is released from the prison, he is safe and without fears. He did not suffer any loss of property, and at that he rejoices and glad at heart. So when you have lethargy and drowsiness, you are almost like you are put into a prison. When you put into prison, you can't move. You can't simply go anywhere you want to go. You are limited, right? When you are lethargy, when you are lazy, you are like put into prison. Like sometimes we are in the bed, right? Even we don't like to move. Even we don't like to sit up. And we want to like be there, right? So it's just like put into a prison and no energy to move. So very limited, very restricted. But when you can get away from that and develop little bit more energy, make our mind energetic, no lethargic, no drowsiness, and just like we are free from a prison. We can move around. Let's try this next one. Just as when a man is a slave, not independent, but dependent on others, unable to go where he likes, but sometime later he is set free from slavery. Now he is now independent, no longer dependent on others, a free man who can go where he wants. At that he rejoices and is glad at heart. So this is like when you have restlessness and worries, like we become victim to those restlessness and worries, and we can't decide what to think, we can't decide what to do, and it's all controlled by our restlessness and worries. And many people are victims to their own anxiety, agitated mind, and later they regret the things that they have done, they have spoken. But when they are doing it, they are like they have no independence. We lose our independence to our own restless mind and no freedom. But when we can detect it and drop it and manage to overcome, and we feel that independence. Let's read the last one. Just as a man rich and prosperous travels through a wilderness where he has no food and much danger, but sometime later he has crossed the desert and gradually reaches the safely to the vicinity of a village, a place of safety, free from danger. At that he rejoices, is glad at heart. What is the last hindrance? The uncertainty. So when you are having this questioning mind and doubting mind, is it the correct thing to do? Why did I do this? Why did I come today? I should have come for the next retreat, not this retreat. This is too early for me. And when you have those kind of thoughts, you are like crossing a dangerous zone. Like a person crossing through a really rich, through a jungle. Can have so many dangerous animals, even like thieves. But very dangerous. But somehow, after a while, you develop some serenity. You understand this is how things work, and you settle your mind. It's just like you pass through that wilderness and come to a clear area, to a village. Okay, let us continue to read. Similarly, as long as these 5 hindrances are not abandoned in him, a monk considers himself as indebted, as ailing, as imprisoned, and as enslaved, and as traveling in the wilderness. But when these 5 hindrances are abandoned, he considers himself as free from death, rid of illness, emancipated from prison's bondage, as a free man, as one arrived at a place of safety. So this is the kind of release that we all want to enjoy, experience in this retreat. So now I'm telling you that you are prisoners. I'm telling you that you have a sickness, you have a loan, you have this, vulnerability to be, to lost in a jungle. Yeah, but actually people realize the release only after they come out from that. As long as they are there, they may not really feel it. It's become normal. We call it's become like we call the new normal. It's become like normal. But when you become released from that, you realize, there was such a release. I mean, one example I like to use that, let's say you are when you wear your shoes, I used to have like discomfort in your shoes. Like in one leg, one foot, there's always discomfort. You kind of got used to it. It's not comfortable. There's some kind of, pain in your heel. And then you get used to it. You have that pain and a little bit discomfort, but you're used to wear that shoe again. After some time, you realize that actually there's a stone in that shoe. A small stone that has been always poking and always been there. And you realize that, there has been a stone here. So you release that stone. And now you wear your shoes. And now you don't feel that discomfort. How you feel now? It's like you feel that relaxation is. But when you have it early, you don't really see it. But when you release it, you really realize that, this is such a relaxation. And sometimes even in our body, we have tightness in our muscles, in our shoulders, in our neck, in our hands and other places. We tend to think that that's normal. That's the way we feel it. But when you learn ways to relax those muscles and realize that it's almost like you have been carrying a few kilos in your shoulders all the while. Now you have put it down. And you feel such relaxation. That's the kind of release we will experience. When you keep our mind free from this hindrance, at least for an hour, for a day, and our goal is to keep our mind free from this hindrance for 3 days. Right? 3 days, at least sit in there. And then try to feel that release, and then, that freedom. Okay, let's continue to read. When he sees himself free from these 5 hindrances, joy arises. In him who is joyful, rapture arises. In him whose mind is enraptured, body is still. The body being still, he feels happiness, and a happy mind finds concentration. That is the deeper level of calmness, and that is the territory you are about to embark on. Okay, that's the territory. Remember, all these things are so positive things. So it's like joy arises, rapture arises, and body is still. And happiness here, really, the happiness means the real deep calmness and deep peace. And then deeper, the concentration means deep tranquility, composure of the mind, stillness of the mind. So these are the things that we really would like, we want to experience in this retreat. Then, detached from sensual desires, detached from unwholesome states, he enters into and dwells in the first absorption, which is accompanied by applied thought and reflection, born of detachment and filled with joy and rapture. He enters into and dwells in the second, third, and fourth absorption. So the absorption is a translation for the term jhana. And jhana is the deeper level of steady mind, deeper level of tranquility that is extremely blissful, extremely relaxed, and extremely uplifting. So the next stage, after we first release from the five hindrances and have this relaxation and joy and rapture, those are actually part of the jhana also, the elements of jhana. And then we can actually experience more steady duration of still mind that we will never forget if we experience such a state of mind, and we will always want to come back. So this is that is the inner peace that we all can develop in this meditation, and that is a possibility. And then the Buddha has taught us that we all can gradually go into that state, and there are clear techniques how to deal with, how to train our mind to achieve such a deeper level of peace. So many other practitioners, so many other advanced teachers have experienced those states, and they are available for all of us too. So let us try our best, in this today, tomorrow, and day after tomorrow. Our first effort is to keep our mind away from five hindrances, right? And we have two approaches to do that, right? We know where they start. They start with sensory objects. In any sense, the hindrance can develop when we hear something, when we see something, smell something. So keep the mindfulness. That is your guard, guarding you around. Whenever you see things, smell things, whatever come to your senses, you become super vigilant and mindful. You notice them, you recognize as they are. If it is a pleasant sense, a pleasant thing, you recognize as a pleasant. If it's unpleasant, you recognize it's unpleasant. But you don't let it to develop into other thoughts. Sometimes they may develop, hindrances. But we try our best to stop right at the beginning. When we have anything coming, seeing, sounds, smells, whatever, we are very mindful, we watch them, we even mentally note, a smell, good smell, dangerous, can develop into a hindrance. You notice, smell, simple experience, not big issue, simple, is fleeting, temporary, and move ahead. And you hear things, sound, somebody is telling something. I have to be really mindful, not to react quickly, not to have other agitated mind. Sounds, people have their own way of speaking, that's their problem, not my problem, and keep your mind free. So you may have to do it, keeping mindfulness as a protection. And then when you are here, we always try to dwell in loving kindness. And tomorrow we also learn qualities of the Buddha and in the breath. So we purposely try to keep our mind there, full of loving kindness. And then we will eventually experience this sense of release and sense of joy, rapture, and other higher levels of happiness. Okay? Yeah. Okay. Yes, brother? Rapture is a translation of... here actually Piti is translated as joy, and rapture is the translation of the word sukha. Passaddhi, right? So it's always difficult to translate into another language. But let's understand what kind of changes happening in the mind. So the first um, whenever we can manage to drop a heavy emotion, let's say it's entirely possible that we experience anger because situation is unpleasant, okay? But we become aware of it, we maintain our mindfulness very strong, and we notice it is as unpleasant, but we did not give rise to anger. Let's say we were able to do that. We call it effort or virya. If we can do that, the resultant mental state would be piti. Here translated as joy. It's a kind of joy also, but more like a mental upliftment. That you overcame a possibility of anger or any other unwholesome mental state. You develop more kind of energy and you experience a mental upliftment. And then as a result of that upliftment, then we will experience here what we call rapture, that is physical relaxation. Because when you don't have strong emotions, our body is relaxed. Means more relaxed than going through an emotion. So that is the translation here. It's we call sukha. Piti and sukha are two important elements of jhanic state. Graduate development is more like a mental upliftment and physical relaxation. Yes, sister? Stillness and peace comes later. So this is more like it's related to stillness. Maybe what you call expansion. But when you say consciousness is going to somewhere else, this is like a mental state. So definitely they are related. But the problem here is that we are talking about different gradual stages that ultimately bring you a super stillness. But before that, there are other changes happening in the mind. So these are different stages along that path. Yes. Okay, I think time is over for us for our Dhamma talk and also Q&A also.